If you're a consultant who wants to grow their consulting business, there's really only 3 essential things that you need to do from a business development point of view. On today's episode, we're going to walk through each of those 3 things and how do you get the most leverage out of them. And we're going to show you how they are the fundamental backbone to getting more projects, contracts, and retainers in your consulting business. For over 30 years now, we've been working in the area of marketing and sales. And for the last decade, we've been working very closely with consultants in particular. So I've worked with thousands of different consultants to grow their consulting businesses and to help them get more of those contractors, retainers, and projects in their practices. And one of the things we've really come to realize is, number one, we love working with consultants because they're usually super smart people who know something about something. They've got often decades of experience and expertise to back it up. And what we've also come to notice is that they can get super distracted because they love understanding how things work. So when we talk about the different areas of sales and marketing that we have expertise in, they're really interested and curious to go and try it out. And in doing that, most consultants will actually end up distracting themselves from doing the things that are key, the essential things that are going to give them the most leverage and bang for their buck. So I'd like to show you those 3, and I'll pull the board over to do just that. So on the board today, I want to show you the 3 things that are going to give you the best bang for your buck when it comes to business development. And when I say business development, I mean developing business. What is the actual work that you're going to be doing in the delivery of the consultancy that you run? Well, these things will get you more of that new work. Now, the first one may seem pretty obvious, but it's one of the ones that most consultants are not doing nearly enough, and sometimes not at all. And that is speaking to existing clients. So it means speaking to existing clients, not just about the project that you're currently working on them with, but about what else is happening in their world. Where else does it hurt? Doctor, please tell me where else it hurts. Because you'll find all these other areas that you may be able to help them with. And what I love about existing clients is they've already proven something to you. They're already proven that they will work with you. And that's not about them choosing you. You get to choose them as much. It's a partnership. But they've proven that they will take the money out of their pocket and give it to you in exchange for your services and for your advice. So your existing clients are key in developing new business. In fact, it's possible to actually get usually about 60% of new business from your existing clientele. And so if you want a quick way to get new business into your business, well, it's by speaking to your existing clients. So even during a project that you might be working on with them, go and speak to them about what else is happening in their world. If you've finished a project, go and speak to them about what else is happening in their world. If you haven't spoken to them, and when I say existing clients, it also means those ones that you've done projects on in recent history, we'll say the last 2 years. If you haven't spoken to any of those clients, right, who you might think are past clients, go and speak to them because they're still within living memory. 2 years is the amount of time that I tend to ensure that people go back and speak to those clients for. Now, that has one caveat on it, that you would be willing to work with those people again, because sometimes past clients are past clients for a good reason. We don't need to go and speak to those clients if we don't want to work with them. But at the same time, we may have grown. They may have grown. You never know. You can always reach out to past clients as existing clients and see, is there any more opportunity there and now? The second one is outreach. So outreach refers to networking. It also refers to just meeting new people. Networking is obviously one of the ways you can do that, but there are so many others. You could join a board. You could actually ask the existing people that you know, who do you know who has problems like I solve? Who do you know who would be good for me to speak to? Who do you know who knows more people in your network? Who do you know who could actually use the services that we provide? There's so many different ways that you can finish that sentence. Who do you know who? But outreach is great because it means you're adding lifeblood to your existing client list, which does 2 things. Number one, it actually helps you grow as a consultant. So even if you've niched right down into a very specific sector, every new person you come into contact with and start working with enables you to become better and more nuanced in your capabilities as a consultant. So number one, having the throughput of new clients actually helps you to grow and see things from different perspectives. Number two, obviously, it actually gives you new work, and it means that you're looking after things like churn. Now, for those who don't know, churn is like how many people leave the business versus how many people stay in the business. And over time, there will be a natural churn because a business either goes out of business or a person passes away. But there's also churn around things just not working out how they should. Now, it could be relationship issues, or it could be just the contract ended and someone else took it over, so there wasn't continued work there. But outreach enables you to replenish that. So you don't actually have to do a lot of outreach. We're talking about maybe networking once in a while, going to a business event, potentially joining some networks themselves, whether they be communities, associations, organizations, even committees on boards. There are all sorts of ways where you can meet new people, and you can even ask your existing people to introduce you to others. So I always like to use the phrase, who do you know who, and then with something at the end of that sentence. So who do you know who I should be speaking to about this thing that I'm doing? Who do you know who has a similar problem to you? Who do you know who would be a good person for me to work with given your current experience? There's also all sorts of ways that you can actually do that outreach, and what I just talked about was an outreach by proxy. You're getting someone else to actually help you do the outreach. Networking is the most basic, and it's the one that majority of consultants will focus on. But there are other ways of doing outreach too, which include things like speaking on platforms, sponsoring, donating your time towards different causes. There are all sorts of ways that basically you can connect with more people by leaving the house, or at least virtually leaving your four walls. All right. So number two is outreach. Make sure you're doing that in your business development journey. Number three is content creation. Now, content is the things that go on social media. It is the video like you're watching right now. It's also articles that you might publish. Now, it doesn't have to be on social media, although that tends to be the majority of things these days. It could be a blog. It could be published in a news article. It could be published in a magazine. There are all sorts of places that you can publish content. And when I say content, I'm not just talking about the written word. I'm talking about everything from a podcast to a video like this one, through to an article. You could publish a report. There are so many different things that you could publish, right down to, here's a new picture of my pet. Isn't he cute? And actually start conversations with people that way. You know, the key to all of this work, all this business development work, is to be able to start a conversation. Because at the end of the day, you as a consultant will be speaking to people through the delivery of the work you do, but also through the engaging of the work you do. Your point of sale is a conversation. And so the shortest path for you to go from here to your next client is to be speaking to people who ideally want what you've got. And so understanding that is absolutely key. Now, how do we take these things, being speaking to existing clients, outreach for new clients or new contacts, and then creating content so that people can actually find and experience us? How does that actually get us into contracts, projects, and retainers? Well, let's look at those three things independently. So let's talk about contracts, projects, and retainers. And they tend to fall in that order. Now, depending on the type of client you're working with, whether they're a large international juggernaut or whether they're a small business or even just a general mum and dad, right? There are different ways that people need to be engaged with. But let's say that we are working with a business, for instance, and it's a business that may even have a procurement process and a legal team. The contractual side of things is to enable you to work with them. It's to be on the books so they can raise a purchase order. And so if you're not currently on their books, you're going to have to get on their books, and there is a process to doing that. And that's some of the challenge with working with those people who are in a big corporate organization. Now, with someone who is, let's say, a small business owner, you don't need to come up with a contract at that level. In fact, most contracts really between two parties, especially the business owner and yourself, they don't need to be big, strong, legally binding contracts. In fact, the majority of times, it's actually quite easy to get out of those contracts because of the way they're worded, or because of how the understanding was, or because they're unrealistic or unfair. So I like the idea of a contract being something that is an agreement between you and the other party, just to share, these are the expectations. This is what I expect of you, and this is what you can expect of me. So it's actually more of an MOU, a memorandum of understanding, but it's a way of starting something and working with someone. Now, I want to touch on that. So we need a contract really to start. Now, in some cases, a contract can be verbal, and it can be my word is my bond, and we're just going to start an engagement that way. Now, in all of those instances, whether you've got a contract or no contract, I like the idea of getting some money up front so that there is commitment. Now, that could be 50%, it could be 20%, I don't mind what it is, but do cover yourself, because even with the strongest, most binding contract there is, a business can go out of business, and through no fault of anyone else's, you can miss out on cash even after you've done the work. So my recommendation is getting some money up front so you don't get hurt and burned at the other side. So we've got contracts. Then we've got projects. Now, projects themselves are interesting. Projects have a focus. They usually have an outcome. There is a specific outcome that we're working to engage with. Now, I want to go back to the corporations. Often when there is a pretty standard type of project to do, they will go to tender, right? They will call for papers, or they'll call for speakers, or they'll call to tender. And they will have people respond to that tender. And they will usually, at minimum, even in a medium-sized company, have we need to get 3 quotes. And that's certainly the case with a lot of other organizations as well. And so you're responding to that much in a contractual way to actually answer a project. But if you want to get out of the rat race of that, I don't like ever being in a situation where I'm one of 3 quotes. And so if I'm wanting to work with a large organization, my suggestion would be find a special project that really only you or a very small amount of people are good at. That'll enable you to actually have a champion inside the business who really wants this thing. They can't find the solution anywhere else. Even if it's just a small amount of money, it could be like $2,000, $10,000, whatever it might be. But if you can get that special project done, then you'll get a champion inside the organization to move you through the paperwork and get you on the books, and then you don't have to worry about the big legal contracts after that point. And then that takes me back to what I said before about speaking with existing clients. So some of those bigger organizations, you might have one person that you're speaking to, but there are thousands of other people that you could work with. In some of the bigger organizations we used to work with, I had one contact in particular, and by the end of our relationship, because I sold my business, I ended up having 17 different contacts inside that business who were sending me work. And so you can actually spread out inside an organization if the size is large enough. So we've got agreements, contracts, we've got projects, we've got big projects, but you've also got special projects. I tend to, in a first engagement, like to do a smaller project. Number 1, to see if I want to work with this person long term, but 2, to make it easier to say yes. All right, so we get on the books, bang. Now, retainers are a different animal altogether. Normally, people are not willing to go on a retainer until they've done some work with you before, which is where the project comes in. But if you're wanting to do a retainer, it becomes really good for 2 reasons. Number 1, it's flexible for you. It enables you to be leveraged. And so you will spend whatever amount of time it takes to get the job done, but you're not going to turn into an employee. Now, sometimes those contractual arrangements, especially if you've just come from a corporation, you might be feeling more comfortable in a contractual arrangement, but you end up just becoming an employee like you were before. We escaped the employment trap to not find ourselves in another employment trap. We want freedom in our business and freedom of choice. So the retainer allows for that flexibility, and it also allows for the flexibility of activity. So we might be retained for our time and our expertise, and we might work on multiple projects within that retainer. So that's the one reason. Number 1 is flexibility. Number 2 is predictability. So predictability of income, but also predictability of expense. And so often you'll find that a client doesn't like the up and down nature of your invoices. And so if you can lock in a contractual arrangement that is a retainer, so the same amount that actually runs every month, it allows there to be a predictable expense that's on the bottom line for the client, but there's a predictable income for you too. And so it could be a contract or a retainer of $5,000 or $10,000 or $20,000 or even above that. but it depends very much on what it is that you're doing, what outcomes you're providing, and what responsibilities you're sort of looking after. So there are all sorts of different ways to get into them, but at the end of the day, there are only 3 activities that you need to be doing to get the ball started. So the 3 essential things that you need to be doing in business development to ensure that you're growing your consulting practice is, number 1, speaking to your existing clients. Now, I would love you to go and have a look at your current client list and your past 2 years client list. Have a read of that and go, how many of those people should you be getting in touch with, even just to have a how are you going type conversation? You will find all sorts of work is generated from those conversations. And in fact, I created on the last video a whole piece around designing a 120 list that is full of these individuals that you can contact for regular work every 90 days. Number 2, outreach. How are you putting that in your diary? Often we can get distracted by a lot of busy things that are going on. And so making sure that we commit to doing some of this, either by putting it specifically in the diary to outreach to people, whether we put in the calendar events that we're going to go to. I think the key with outreach is actually having it in the diary so that we get it done, because otherwise it won't get done. Now, at the same time, outreach can also be done by assistants, VAs, and sometimes bots and automation. There are all sorts of ways to do that. But I think the key with outreach is that you're actually starting relationships with people. So don't just rely on someone else doing it for you. Certainly don't rely on just artificial intelligence trying to do it for you, because you're going to miss out on the actual relationship building, either because you didn't do it and you need to go and read the transcript of what was said, or because it wasn't necessarily what you would have said, which means that changed the relationship of the relationship, right? The relationship of the nature of the relationship. So outreach, but it's a critical step to make sure, in fact, it's essential to make sure that you're getting new blood into your business. And number 3, content. Content creation. A lot of people are scared of doing it for 2 reasons. Number 1, they're worried about, if I put my thoughts and ideas out here, I could get judged. All right, so people could judge my thoughts and ideas. I actually personally love the back and forth of having conversations about the thoughts and ideas that I'm putting out there, because it helps me grow and it helps me be able to communicate more effectively with those people that I aim to serve. So you might just want to start small with the content creation. You might want to just write an article. You might want to publish it on your website. And unfortunately, most websites don't get nearly as much traffic as you would like, but that might be a way to ease yourself into the water. The second reason that people don't like to put it out there is they think people might steal their ideas. But the reality is, no one's stealing your ideas, because ideas are free. Like, everyone's got ideas. There are so many ideas and there's so much content out there, it's almost difficult to come up with something that is completely new. And so in hiding behind the idea that I'm not going to share my ideas, no one gets to experience them. And if no one gets to experience them, they don't get to experience you, which means that you are not in their decision-making process about someone who can guide them in whatever next step they need to take. Yet if they're engaging in your content, they're starting to experience how you work, and they're starting to see, is this a person that I could work with? Maybe I should reach out to them. And we've found that that is very much the case so many times in our own business. In fact, there was one time in particular where we had a client contact us that said that he'd been following our content for the last 2 years and had actually made all these business plans off the back of the things that we said. And they'd gone really well, so now he thought it was time to actually commit to us and start working with us. And he worked with us for a number of years, and actually we made a hell of a lot of money out of it, right? So the content generates those ideas, but it also generates clients in return. So I'd love to know, what area are you going to focus on next? Is it going to be contacting your existing clients? If it's not, I recommend that you do. Is it going to be doing more outreach? Or finally, is it going to be more generating of content? Now, if you are going to generate that content, making sure that you're generating content with intent in understanding, why am I creating this content? How is it moving people into a conversation with me? Because at the end of the day, all 3 of those things should be starting a conversation with our market. So this has been episode 82 of the Your Consulting Business Podcast. If you haven't already, make sure to go to russellpearsonprograms.com. We've put a new resource there that you can download absolutely free. Until next time, my name's Russell Pearson. Stay passionate, and I will catch you on the next one. Bye for now.